There we go. So welcome again to the Career Conversations Book Club with Lisa Bragg. And Lisa, where are you? There you are. You're in that corner. I'm just looking to see where you are. I'm really delighted to have you here today. And what I've found over the years, as I've been coaching and dealing with students and lawyers and other professionals, is that people have this craving to learn about how people get to their career. So what I wanted to ask you, you've got an incredible career story. We've seen a little bit of it. We've heard a little bit of it. A speaker, advisor, professional mentor, founder of MediaFace, Toronto-based content and consulting firm creator, and also a TV reporter and anchor for 15 years is what I've understood. All very, very cool. And so can you share with us briefly today to the group and to those who watch it later, some of your personal highlights of your career journey? How did you start in each role? How and when did you move on? When did you know and what told you that it was time to move on? Over to you and welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love that. It's a great question to start with because so often we just hear of the milestones. We don't hear of the moments along the way, and those milestones sound pretty significant, but it's all those moments that really make the difference to really what our careers are about, and also sharing. So then it's not just the luck of all of it, or I got to this one position and that it saved everything and all these things happened because of that. But the moments along the way are what we really need to focus on, much more than titles and things like that. So how did I start? I was actually a really young girl who would watch a lot of TV news. My family watched a lot of news. And so I would see people on the news giving the news. And, I didn't really know much about law because I think I would have been a lawyer if looking back, I think a do-over because there's so many things that are very similar. So got into Ryerson, which is now TMU, for journalism and broadcasting specifically, because nowadays you don't stream like you do, but broadcasting, and moved all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie and moved all around the province of Ontario for work. And really enjoyed it. Did everything from the weather, which I am not good at. It is always, if it's snowing, it's always a day for snowmobiling. I just don't have it in me to point. It's just not a thing. But then landed in news and said to myself, I could see the tide was changing. And I have a story in the book about when I realized that news was really changing. And I was actually part of ushering in the change of news, because I was one of those videographers. I don't know if you remember them. They still have them now, but it's one of those people that I had a big camera here and I'd have my microphone out in front and I'd say, let me this. So I'd say, hey, can I ask you, ask you to be on camera? And it was just the change, because before you'd have several people as part of your crew. But as we now move into, just this as part of our technology, I could see it was starting to happen. And so it was in 2007, I realized that YouTube, if you may not remember, but YouTube was brand new. YouTube was only 6 months old in 2007, and it was coming on fast and furious. And so that's when I realized that news as we knew it was really going to change even faster than what it had been changing, and that there was an opportunity to help corporations to tell their stories without having to wait for news. So I helped some companies get online for the first time through video, animation, e-learning. Some of it's pretty funny when we look back at what it was and how much effort it took. And now with chat, it's amazing how fast things are going to happen with all the technology that they're coming up with in the near future, with video especially. So could see the writing on the wall early that it was going to be a time to pivot. And so I pivoted. It's actually funny because when I was in broadcasting early on, because I had to do all those jobs, I would see people from the CBC come in, and often they would have anywhere from 3 to 6 people, because English and French. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be there with my camera doing all the things, and they'd have 6 people. And I always wanted to just be that person that I was walking in well coiffed, highest heels and ready to go, and just like do my little bit and get in the car. I thought, wouldn't that be so nice? But what all those skills that I was learning from being a videographer, so having to enterprise my own stories, having to go out, talk to everyone and anyone, and never knowing who I was going to talk to that day. Oddly, sometimes it was the prime minister of the day at a fish and chips shop because suddenly he appeared, or it was, the kid with a lemonade stand down the street. I never knew what the day would bring. So it was exciting that way. But it was interesting to have all those skills where I could also edit and do all the things that so many of us can do now. They weren't as obvious back then. So it allowed me to then say, I have all these transferable skills. I could transfer all that I learned and start my own business. And so that was really amazing for me, because I didn't want to hire a lot of people off the start, because like so many women-owned businesses, I bootstrapped it. I wanted to make sure that it was real and profitable and all those things before I started bringing people into my world. And so then I grew the company, and so MediaFace grew to 20 people and full-time employees, and then other people that were also associated and affiliated with the company. And then I decided to change things up, and that led me on my new journey. So it was just before the pandemic. We were heavily involved. Our client base was mostly financial services, governments, large corporations, and so it was great. But I decided that my passion was really in, why do we have problems? So I'd go up to people in news and say, "Hey, let me tell you a story." When I was in MediaFace, my content company, I'd say to people, they'd ask me on the elevator ride out, they'd say, "Hey, Lisa, I see what you're doing for our subject matter experts. Can you help me get online and talk about what I'm doing so I can get a promotion, so I can be seen and heard? Because I'm seeing what it's doing for our subject matter experts, but I'm kind of lost in the background here. What can we do?" So I realized there was a red thread to all of this, and that my mission in life was really, after some reflection, was really to help people be seen and heard. And that's really something that I really believe in. And so that's where during the pandemic, I'm like, I need to really move forward with this bragging rights thing and develop it into something more. And that's where I decided to write the book and conduct the world's largest research survey on bragging and self-promotion.
Uh,
Gina, did that have enough nooks and
It
crannies for
it
you? Did that
did.
take enough of a journey for everywhere to say, like, you need to pivot once in a while?
Absolutely. And you were sort of ahead of the game. And it's interesting because you said 2007, which doesn't sound like that long ago. And I did my quick math. And yeah, that was quite a bit of a time ago, when YouTube, you said, was only 6 months old at that time. And if I'm not mistaken, that was also your pivot was largely because of a Canadian icon presently. If I'm not mistaken from your book, can we say the name Justin Bieber? Like, you were trying to promote an article on Justin, or a session on Justin Bieber, and you got a no. You were told no, and therefore you thought, I'm going to take this into my own hands and do things the way that I think is the future.
And you know what? I had the chance just yesterday too. So on February 26th, to be on the station that had happened. I mentioned it in the book, CHCH. And
Mhm.
so they had me back to talk about the book. And I was afraid they weren't going to invite me back. And so the anchor, I was kind of flustered. If you see the interview, I was kind of flustered because she was asking me all these questions. And then like before the interview, because we know each other, she's lovely. But she said, "Lisa, who was it about the Justin Bieber story? Who said no
Oh,
behind the scenes?" Because she wanted to know the down low. And so she was like, oh, so she wasn't surprised in the end, but she was just like, of course. And so I had a chance meeting with Justin Bieber and some of his friends. This was before he was Justin Bieber. He was just that kid. I can't even remember if he really had the hair. He just had shaggy hair, but I don't remember him doing that flick thing. If you remember that flick thing.
he was just Justin at that
He was
time, right?
just a kid. But I was doing a story on politics. In that area, they had, I can't remember now if it was federal, but they had flipped because there was a reorganization. I'm sure there's lots of people who are into politics here, but they had flipped the borders of who goes where. And then they had to have another by-election, and then somebody dropped out. And so they had another by-election. So I had to go there. And I had covered that region previously for another news organization. So they sent me up there. And so I was looking for people to do what's called a streeter. So those are people, when you have a news person just say, "Hey, I want your thoughts on this random topic that you know nothing about because it just happened in the news. I want to ask you that." So I was standing looking around for people to interview about this political story and candidates. And so Justin Bieber and his friends walked up and, "Can I be on camera? Can I be?" Because it was exciting back then.
Hmm.
And I had to unfortunately say no. But I went back to the station, and he did sing for me. I don't know if I taped it. I have a bag of old tapes downstairs, and I should go through them. My husband says they're just garbage now because they've moved so many times with us, and that medium doesn't last. But great kid, fun to talk to him. And I went back to the station saying, we have to cover him. He's going to Atlanta. He's going to do these things with all these producers who I had no idea who they were at the day. I was now I know who they are. And I said, we need to do a story. And the news director and the assignment editor said, YouTube, you want to do a story on someone on YouTube? Like, that's just ridiculess. It's
It won't be
going
around for too
nowhere.
long.
No, it's going nowhere. That's really embarrassing that you'd pitch that story. It was a lot of shade, a lot of shame. And I was like, wait a minute, there's something happening here that is bigger than all of us, that's happening really fast. And so I realized it was time to take all those skills and start storytelling for corporations
I
and make
love it.
more money.
I love it. No, I love it. I love it. Now, so I think that gives us an idea to the next question that I have for you, because that sort of was a serendipitous moment. My favorite word that people know is serendipity. I always tell people to plan. And of course, the advice that I give, and you sort of give some suggestions in your book about planning, but in our careers, there's a little bit of planning, and I think a little bit or a whole lot of serendipity. I ask all of my guests the same question. How much of your career would you say was planned very strategically and methodically and thoughtfully? And how much did chance occurrences like that Justin Bieber meetup that you recognized? Because serendipity doesn't just happen. You've got to recognize it and then take that situation and go with it. How much do you think was planned? How much was serendipitous?
Well, I think going to journalism school was very planned because it was extremely competitive. I can't even tell you how competitive. So that was planned. I really wanted to go and made sure, that was something that I was going to do. And then getting jobs, planning far out, where could I get opportunities? So planning, yes, but I think a lot of it is serendipity. It's realizing that these are opportunities and then planning to those opportunities. So do I jump in sometimes something that's right in my lap? Yes. But also I can see things on the horizon and have that when I'm seeing things on the horizon, then I have a self-reflection time, and it's not as structured as what it sounds like, but I'll take that time and think, okay, is there something there? What should I be doing about that? And not just wait till it's right up against the opportunity time. So that's what it looks like. It's luck, because you have that time to set yourself up strategically. So when that next pivot point does happen, then you have that time. So I would say the straight answer is a lot of it is reaction to something that is the opportunity in the moment, the serendipity, that fortuitous opportunity, that luck, that I think is luck. And am I taking door one or door three? Yeah, it's one of those gambles from that old show that I don't even remember. What's it? Make a deal?
Let's
Does
make a
anyone
deal.
make a
Let's make a
deal?
deal.
And if you don't know it, go watch it just for a laugh and some old pop culture. It was like it's funny to see
There's
what
a
they
new
would
version
do.
of it too. So
Is
it's
it?
still, yeah,
Oh,
it's still playing in a more modern version, but still the same kind of corniness. I think what I loved about your answer though was you said it wasn't just the serendipitous moments or the planned moments, but it was the reaction, your response to those serendipitous occasions or occurrences. It's how you decide, do you go to door number one? Do you go to door number three? And I think that's really important as you work through your career. You don't know what doors are going to be available to you. And I know a number of people who are on the call right now kind of think, I'm not sure what doors I'll find or what doors I'll create or what doors I'll walk through, but it's just being open to that possibility.
and Gina, can I just add to your point too? Because I really like that. But adding to that is that's where sometimes if you don't get a position or you don't win a client that you think you should have,
Mhm.
don't burn anything down. Don't do anything drastic, because so often those doors for those other people that look like they're open wide and they're going to walk right through, something happens and then they're on the elevator down or whatever it is. And so then you have an opportunity to actually walk through either a better door, a bigger door, or a brand new door that you hadn't even seen before. And so that's where I always caution people about when that one door closes, that saying, there's actually often another opportunity behind it, and to keep going to where you want to go.
That's a really great reminder. Yeah, it might sound cliche, but I really do believe it. If it's not meant to be that instance, something else is around the corner. So I really do agree. We give ourselves a little bit more than 30 minutes to go into the book because there's so much good content in here. People who've seen this know I've got my tabs, and I really loved going through it. What I really appreciate, and if anybody has not read the book, don't worry. But if you can get your hands on the book and read through it, I really loved how you had so many reflection pieces, and we'll come back to it. You give people a chance to stop. It's not that you give them a chance, you actually ask them, go get your pen, write this down, and you give so much opportunity for people to work through the things that you're talking about. But let's start out with, I always love asking the why. You talked about how that was part of your transition from your content media company to things that were happening in elevators that made you think of let me do this and look at this a little bit more. But why was this book important to do an international research, to write about, and then to share it with all of us in the world?
Well, I think the one thing we haven't addressed yet is my last name.
Yes, Lisa Bragg.
So I think I was the only person who can actually write this book. I don't know. Actually, I grew up with somebody named Boast, so that was funny. He was in my math class. But um, growing up, I was, and I'm sure everyone on this call, you wanted to, you're a high achiever. You wanted that 95%. Wait a minute. How come I didn't get 99%? What do you mean? 99.8? What? No, 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 no. Like we wanted those gold stars. We are trained for those gold stars. Put your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. We knew the rubric. We knew how to get from A to B. We knew how to get fours or whatever, like those highest marks ever. And so I was trained that way. And then as I grew a little bit, well, it was in junior high, people would say, "Are you going to brag about it?" So I'd start to hide, that I was getting these good marks and doing all these extra things. And so I started hiding a little bit of myself. Funny though that I became a broadcaster, but back in my day, it wasn't about the journalist. It was always about the audience. And so I never talked about myself. Like it was always about the weather or about whatever I was covering. It was not about me. So it was a different time with that. So but I was always, when I was in journalism, always looking for somebody different to interview. When journalism, maybe in my day, I just want to generalize because I don't want to say everyone, but so often it's a pack journalism thing. If you look at one paper, they have the same interviews as another paper. The same one TV channel has the same as the next TV channel. And I think that's really wrong. I think that's really, really wrong, where we have the same people all the time being interviewed. And so I often wouldn't go with a pack. I would go, I would zig when they would zag, just because I wanted to have different people. And so that often meant that I would have people who had never been on camera before. But again, remember, I was by myself. So I could do some instant media training and I'd say, I want you to look good too. This is your first time. Let's do it. And here's how you do it. And da, 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 da. And so I would encourage people to do it with me. And when they would, because so often they'd say, oh, no, not me. Go down the hall to Bob or Steve.
Yeah.
But no, like you are the experts. And that's where I often nowadays I have this little wand when I do my little workshops where
Oh,
it's
you
super
really do have
cheesy.
a wand. I
It's
saw
super
it in your
duper
book.
cheesy. And I love it, right? Because it's like sometimes we're
Can we
talking about
take a
heavy
picture of
things.
you with the wand, by the way? Do you mind if I take a picture of you with the wand? Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to take it right now. Hang on. Three, two, one. Done. Okay, great. You and
Okay,
your wand. I love it.
super
Thank you.
cheesy. Um, because they are the expert. Like they are the person. They're the leader, they're an expert or they're a visionary, but no one has told them that yet. And I'm like, who am I to tell them that they are? But if I tell them that they are, we all believe it a little bit more when someone else says you are. So I would do that and I'd get them to go on camera and then they would go on and get more media or a new opportunity or someone would see them and all these good things would happen. And I still have the thank you notes from some of those people that, that first open the door for them or this first opportunity that being on media can help your career with. So it was fascinating to see that part of it. And then again, with the media company, sorry, I've totally lost the thread because the wand made my brain zap. So I was on the thread of
Your why for
my
the book.
why. Yeah. And so that's where it was really trying to find people and helping people to be seen and heard. That is my why. And realizing that it was time. So my last name, realizing my red thread is helping people be seen and heard. And then the international research. So I had the idea for bragging rights. I did some alpha testing with people to see, does this work for other people? Because I used to do work and I do work in corporations. So I'd start to do these little workshops on what became bragging rights. And then I did some online Zoom things, as we all did in 2000 and 2001. And then somebody said it was Adam Grant, who he is a Wharton professor. He's a New York Times bestselling author by 5 or 6, 7 times. And he stands by the statement that and I'm not saying it exactly, but it's bragging violates modesty norms. And if you were that competent, your work would speak for itself. Something along those lines he always uses. And that bugs me so much. So I had a chance during the pandemic. It was in a Zoom like this with 300, 400 people. And I put my name first in the chat. So if you ever always try to go first in these kind of things. I put my question in right away. And I said, hey, Adam, you've said this before. You keep reiterating it on social media. Do you still stand by this during this pandemic where women are really having an issue, especially Indigenous women, Black women, women of color? Do you still stand by this where we shouldn't brag and shouldn't talk about ourselves? And he says, I do. I do still stand beside it, especially for women, because it's complicated. And then he said, because the research shows that, it's really bad for women to do it, and there's more penalties and things like that. And that really bothered me a lot. Like, if there could be steam coming out of my head, but it made all the wheels start to go in my brain too, because then I realized, well, what is this research he's talking about that's saying we shouldn't do these things? And do we then not do things because HBR, so Harvard Business Review, and all these business periodicals then take those headlines and plaster them everywhere. And then we become even more concerned about our opportunities to brag and self-promote. And so I looked at the literature. I did the research review and found that, yes, a lot of the research shows that there's penalties for women. And we know there are. We will have that conversation. But it showed it from a lot of the lens of what they talked about, where it was from women, students in the US who are 20 and 21 years old. So university students, that's the pool.
Wow.
And so when you're 20 and 21 years old, what do you want to do? You want to just fit in. And we all want to fit in now too, and we can get into that. But you really want to fit in a way that's really just blend in, don't stand out. But as we grow in our career, we also need to stand out. And then we realize we also need to add in our own unique stories that are intersectionality. Only that one you can bring. So we need to add that in. And so I think all those layers to that. So that research, and thank you to Adam Grant. And I did send him my book to see if he'd blurb it, but he didn't have enough time.
That's okay.
That's okay, because Seth Godin, who is also way up there in my scale of admired authors, did blurb, and a lot of other awesome people and women did too. So
Seth Godin made it to the top, I see.
He made it to the top. Yeah, he made
Smart,
it to the top.
kind, and useful, the sort of insight you'll be glad you paid attention to.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
From Seth Godin.
Yeah, so great that he did that. I was so nervous sending him that my book. He was the third person I sent it to. So I had all the editors and lots of amazing people supporting the book. And then I sent it to 2 friends who are in facilitation and training and workshops and are really smart women that I trust to the ends of the earth. And then I sent it to Seth Godin. It was one of those 3, 2, 1, because he said, well, maybe if I have time, I'll get to it. He was so fast getting back to me with it, and had a few compliments in it. I was so excited to read those. And then he also had some corrections that my editors didn't catch. So, but I was so nervous reaching out. But when we reach out, what was the worst he was going to say? No, like Adam did. I don't have time in the end, because Adam kept stringing me along. But Seth, like, it came back fast. So taking that leap of faith of believing yourself and trying it, knowing that you are going to be nervous, but I call it fear plus 10%. And I think that one was fear plus 25, maybe 35% if I'm being, maybe 50. No, I was fear plus 100%.
I love it. I'm curious, were you fear plus 10, 20, 50, or 100% when you challenged Adam Grant, right? Like, he made a statement and you thought, no, I don't know, where's that research coming from? Let me question it. You dug deeper. Was there any fear there, or was it more, I don't know. You said steam was coming, so I don't take it that was fear. There was something else going on there instead.
You know what? I just think when people are in supreme positions of privilege,
Hmm.
um, we have to get curious.
Yeah.
All of us have to get curious about what I believe in news. I believe in it. I think just people are moving too fast sometimes, but I think we have to get curious and we have to
Yeah.
revisit our positions and understand like what's that about. And so, do we wait for the research to change or do we change the research? Like, do we
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
now? And so his suggestion is, well, you have to wait till the research changes, or you have to wait for somebody else to change things. And my challenge to all of us tonight is we have to continue to change things and do our own piece of whatever that means to yourself. But we have to do things to move ourselves forward. We can't wait. And that's why people always say, well, I'm working to help the next generation. But my thing is, no, I want to help everyone right now, wherever you are on the continuum. If you are the CEO of a top company, then I can help you too. Or if you're just starting out, let me help you. Or if you're 5 years old, well, what I'm doing today will help you too. But I believe that we have to help each other where everyone is at this moment right now, and not just wait to help the next generation. That's a
I
little
love
bit
it.
of my soapbox
No, no,
with
I
that,
love the
but
soapbox. And speaking of soapbox, so lawyers like journalists, apart from being loving soapboxes, also care a lot about words. So I want us to all be on the same page, because you talked about your name, Bragg, and allowing us to have that as the title. But let's start how you understand or how you define bragging, because bragging sometimes brings an ick factor to it, right?
yeah.
And it shouldn't. According to you, there's spirit, there's other really wonderful things. So let's all get on the same page about what bragging means to Lisa Bragg.
Yeah. So I was just going to backtrack a little bit though. So I conducted the international research on bragging and self-promotion because that was really important to me. But it was that word. So people from all over the world added to the study. I think it was 70 countries. I can't
Wow.
remember now, but it was a lot of countries and a lot of people and diverse people. The intersectionality was really interesting. That is still open, that research. So we're just revising my website. So it's going to go up there soon. But a lot of people found that introspection time was really interesting. So what the international research found was the one word was ick, that they found bragging icky. And so that was so revealing that so
Interesting.
many people, the quantitative part said, the qualitative and quantitative part, but the quantitative people put the check beside icky. And a lot of people identified that word as their word in the initial research that I did. So bragging means to talk about one's success with pride. And here's the reframe of all of it, that pride also means justified self-love. So this is where we can all give ourselves that pat on the back. It's justified self-love. And it's also allowing the world to know how you're here to serve. So if they know how you're here to serve because you're doing what you're successful with, was successful at, then they're not going to go to that mediocre person down the hall. They're going to come to you and know that you are of service. And so that's what it really is. So many of us are taught to be hidden gems. I've said it already. Put your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. That's not the way the world works. Do I wish it were sometimes, that because I don't have to just sit at home and watch Netflix or Prime or whatever it is.
Let's
It's
make a
just,
deal.
yeah, like, or just watch, and have everyone find me on my little piece of the internet. Sure, that would be great, but that's not happening anytime soon because there's so many of us. And when I do my workshops, I talk about back in the day, not that long ago, a lot of us were part of agricultural societies, and some of us still are in the world, but a lot of us now live in cities where it's very loud and the internet is very loud and it's noisy. So how do we become part of the signal and make sure that people can see and hear us? The challenging part is that because so many of us were taught to not be a squeaky wheel, to put your head down, all those things, or wait till we're perfect.
Hmm.
We're taught that self-aggrandizement, it's actually self-aggrandizement that is the word that's the no-go. Self-aggrandizement, I'm sure you already all know this word, but that's the icky word. That's the puffery. That's I'm better than you. that only one person can win. We see self-aggrandizement. You've seen it all the time. You might see it in some politicians. You might see it on social media. That's where it feels icky. And that's the challenging word. Where bragging originally, and this is, I love this part that I found this, but it originally meant shine and shimmer and bravery in several different languages. So shine, shimmer, and bravery. So reframe that. If I could make that happen, I don't think I can, because it has been a much more of a negative word. But if shine, shimmer, bravery, beautiful way to think of talking about our successes and less icky. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And the fact that you found it, two things struck me with that. One is that you found a similar definition in various languages, and that the icky factor came up by respondents across the globe. So, because a lot of people might think, oh no, bragging is something that North Americans like to do. Bragging is something that pick a jurisdiction likes to do, but we don't do it, or we do it in whatever culture. And you've surpassed um, cultural barriers or cultural norms necessarily. You've really opened it up to understand it as a general theme and general invitation to anybody, wherever they are, to shine, shimmer, and be brave.
Yeah, it was interesting because I really had a Canadian stereotype of it all. And I acknowledge that I'm a white woman too, right? So I thought it was Canadians at first because we're polite and we're told to pass the mic, and, we're number three, yay, except in hockey, right? So but then I was in line at an event, and I was talking to a New Yorker, and she was so well coiffed and on all the boards, and much older and just so fabulous. And she said, what are you thinking about? What are you doing? And I told her my theme, how so many of us are taught, put your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. Well, I want to blow that up. And I said, but that probably doesn't relate to you, bias. And she said, Lisa, of course it applies to me. I'm Catholic. And so I was like, oh. And then somebody else from the Midwest, and then somebody from Australia, tallest poppy syndrome, then somebody else from India, and then somebody else from me. And so I just tapped into the global community that we can nowadays, and found out that it's not a Canadian issue only, that a lot of countries identify it, including the US, where we think that, well, can't all of them talk like that, talk about their successes? No, a lot of us can't. And it comes sometimes to socioeconomic and lots of other reasons too. But yeah, that's why we can't just say one group is fantastic with it. Interestingly enough, though, in Japan, a lot of difference in culture still, and they still really, it's still tempered there of how much one talks about.
Yeah.
It's, even in sports, you can write about it, but it's not supposed to go through your lips, is what
Interesting.
the panel of women I talked to in Japan about it. So, but they're challenged too, because they have to talk about themselves, because a lot of them were working for international firms. One of the women was working with Ernst & Young. She'd only worked in traditional Japanese companies before, and now she's working at EY. And so how does she now write out this bio about herself or talk about herself? Because in Japan, they also have this thing where we can read the room, read each other, and you're supposed to, it's in the air that they know that you want a promotion. And I think a lot of people are, because they're in tune, they are reading the room a bit more, but I don't think any of us can do that. Wouldn't it be nice to say, I want a promotion, and your
Yeah.
leader knows that? Or I want a new client, and your new client can just feel that and just say yes, that it's going to be you. So
Well,
yeah,
it's
found
funny
it
because
fascinating.
even with our partners, I know I have that conversation with a number of clients over the last 2 weeks, but even with our partners, my husband keeps saying to me, I can't read your mind. You got to tell me what you want. I think that that's the case with others as well. And Victoria, I love it. I'm going because you're leading into what I'm going to ask everybody to do if they feel comfortable. You say it takes a lot of courage to brag at all, but I do, and I love it, and I'm so grateful to you. But what I'm going to ask everybody to do at some point in the next hour or so, put something up here that they're really proud of. So I'll just leave that on the slide in the chat, but I invite everybody who wants to participate. Let me go on. We as for Ontario lawyers, Lisa, the CPD, the continuing professional development requirement is based on us talking about leadership for legal professionals, and I always have to look around here, and best practices for career and profile management as a legal professional. So whether you're an Ontario lawyer or any other career role, why do you think, Lisa, that bragging is so important to both personal and professional success?
Yeah. So talking about one success with pride. So, and that's so important. Our clients can't, we often think, well, our clients should know this about us, but they don't. And so we have to be able to tell stories about our successes and have that story on the table for them, ready to go and not waiting for them to ask. So often we are like, well, they'll eventually ask me, how my book of business or clients I've represented, but we have to actually put it out there first for them to say, oh, I want that person to be part of my team. We can't wait for them to ask. It's too much work on other people. And other people are saying, hey, here's what I'm doing. So we do have to put it out there so our clients know our successes. It's success begets success. That's really the truth of it. And so we need to let people know through stories, through other ways that we're the person for them. I think it also goes with that we have bragging and we have self-promotion. So bragging is that thing that you need, that you've been successful with, that you want to put out in the world. And self-promotion, those are the tactics, the vehicle that will put it out to the world. So that's why I'm never a social media, get on social media kind of person, because your success may be just actually talking to 2 people or 3 people, or writing a newsletter or doing a podcast or doing a Zoom like this, but it could be just one person that you need to get in touch with that will make the success that you need to happen. So it's not broadcasting, it's narrowcasting to the people that you want to have success. But so that's where we really do need to talk about our successes so that they'll know how you are here to serve. And when they know that, then they can say, oh, yes, then we can really hire Emily, or then we could have Angela, or any of you to do the job that you are meant to do. Those opportunities you already deserve. That's the way we get it out there instead of waiting for somebody else to find us as hidden gems. There's nothing worse than us working harder and harder and harder because we're, supposed to be so good they can't ignore you. Well, we're waiting and we're waiting because they're still ignoring us because they're on to the next fire or the next client or the next opportunity. And so that's where really self-advocacy is the way to success for most of us.
Self-advocacy. If you don't like bragging, you can use the word self-advocacy, but I love bragging and especially the definition that you've given to it. But here's the difference. You talk in your book about differentiating 2 words, reputation and brand promise. Can you speak more about that in particular?
So many of us worry about our reputation.
Well, lawyers are, you only have, one reputation, and it, it's really, it's told to us on a regular basis. And you did this, and that's what a lot of people who have their practice are really nervous about the reputation. But talk to us about that and brand promise.
Yeah. So the thing is that we spend so much time on the past, and that's problematic where we're all, yes, and that's the thing. The audience that I talk to, your reputation is solid. It's great. You're already doing great things. But what we need to do is talk about where we want to go. So you always market to where you want to go. A lot of us, we market just based on our reputation. I've only done X, so therefore I can do X plus, but I really want to do Z. Like I want to go way up here. So instead of just doing X plus, we want to go up here. So start marketing to yourself as if you're going to Z and telling people you want to go to Z and showing people that you want to go to Z. It all aligns in some way, but instead of just doing X plus or just X, because a lot of us do lateral moves, lateral clients, go for that Z. So you want to start talking to the market of where you want to go, not where you've been. And that's where so many of us, we bundle up our credibility and we'll give our whole credibility before we say anything, instead of just saying they can go to LinkedIn. They're already checking you out before they meet you. So make sure you do have a LinkedIn profile. That's the one social media thing I do say, because that's where they can check you out. Because you've all probably gone and checked me out on LinkedIn already. Can I have anyone check me out? Or did you come in here because the basis of Gina said I was awesome?
How many of you have actually checked out Lisa's website or LinkedIn profile? There we go. Okay, see a few hands up there. Yep. Those who aren't showing their video, you can show your show of hand. Absolutely.
So you've checked me out, right? But a lot of us, we shouldn't, and when you do speeches and stuff like that, you think I have to give all my credibility first. But Gina's already invited me here, and all of you like Gina and say Gina's already, got your thumbs up. You're attending something. So she bestowed to me credibility already. So thank you for that. But we do that. So, and then you also then go and just refer and check out my social media, and you also go to my website, or, that's what they do. So we need to make sure those holes are filled in so we don't have to constantly articulate our credibility, that it's already out there for people to see. So of course we want our friends to say, yes, she's the person, friends and acquaintances, past clients. That's great. And then we also need to make sure that there's a secondary point for them to say, oh, yes, that's it. And that's where a lot of us need to show and talk about what we really believe in the world, because that's a differentiating factor too. Tricky, but something that is valuable to all of us. And I think we're seeing that more and more, where people shop by their values and stand by their values. So yeah.
I love the perspective of don't always look back, look forward. And I've invited people to think about what their Z is, where you want to go, and write it down somewhere, give some thought to it, but write it down if you can. And shout out to Tiffany for sharing her 4.0 graduation from her MBA program. Way to go. Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. So why do people hold back though? You spent a couple of chapters, and you can tell us as much or as little. We've talked about some of the reasons why people resist sharing their successes, achievements, and wisdom. Tell us a little bit about that. What's the why behind why we're so worried about sharing?
Yeah, there's several reasons, and I go through several of them in the book, but it's, again, it's these things we're told over and over again. We're told to be nice, so always be nice. The thing is, though, I talk about being kind. I don't know if this made it in the book. I can't remember right now because you edit out so many things, but we need to be kind,
Book
and we
number
need
two's
to,
coming.
yeah. But being nice means that we don't say what we need to say, and because we don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. But if we're kind, we need to sometimes hurt the other person's feelings or talk about our successes and get ahead. I believe in collaboration over competition, but we also need to articulate our point of value. What is that? And so we need to, you need to put yourself out there and talk about your successes. I think we've been told so often the cream rises to the top. This is very controversial. Meritocracy, I think we're seeing more and more that it's not what it'd be great if it worked. Wouldn't it be great that the best person got the job? Wow, wouldn't that be awesome? But we see circles of power. And so if you're not close to that circle of power, it doesn't quite work. And that's the whole thing with Adam Grant, is be so good they can't, bragging violates modesty norms. If you're that good, your work would speak for itself. But my work can't speak. It's not that loud. You're not going to see it way over where you are. So I have to give it voice. I have to help it along the way. And then I also have to have my cheerleaders and my friends who are in power to help it get to that person in power that I need to way over here. The silos of all of it. We can't break down all these silos. And so we need to have friends, of course, but it's waiting. We're all going to be waiting far too long, and that's not going to make systems change. Like, we need to change these systems, and I wish it weren't our generation, but it's our generation soon, but we need to get going on it. So it's we can't wait for the research. We can't wait. So it's my thing.
And I love how you also, in your book, you sprinkle um, stories about your daughter. I think it is your daughter, right? And there's a few different stories, and you're right. Role modeling something a little bit different so they can see a different way of shining, and feeling really good about shining is really important. So role modeling it for others, I think, is really incredible. Constance, thank you for sharing. That is phenomenal. First in my immediate extended family to attend university, also the only lawyer. Awesome. And Carrie up above, I love her comment in terms of leaving an amazing job to pursue great work with better balance. And Z is under development. I love that it's under development, which is fantastic. But you've got that thinking. So congrats to both of you. I love that. Um,
Can I just say something?
Please, yes, go.
Put your wins in these kind of chats, even when, I love that you're doing this, because we need to see that, because then we can say, what, Constance did this, and we know this, and I have that in common, or this, and we can add to these conversations, and we just share a little bit more that, okay, I can be that way. I can talk about that too. I had that. Like, we're not always articulating these things because we always want to show up and be our shiny best with each other. And I'm not saying that you should, we're, especially as women, we have to watch some of our positioning. Unfortunately, it's, that's a whole other conversation, but we by sharing these stories with each other, the moments over the milestones, we take away that illusion of everything's all about luck. Well, I just got lucky. I just got lucky. It was just luck. It's like, no, you put a lot of work into getting your master's or your MBA. You put a lot of work into being the first person to go to university. It takes work when you don't know how to navigate the systems and somebody didn't show up and take you to the front door of their old school or know anything about university at all. That all takes a lot of work. And so when we share these stories with each other, it's like, oh, you have that same as I do. Okay. And that helps us to build community and camaraderie. And it's the community feeling. So
Well
thank you for
said.
sharing these things. It's
No,
really good to do.
absolutely. And it sort of goes to a perfect segue to the next question, which is your book, it's the community and you want to help people to help others shine as well. So you're giving great feedback and instruction, not instructions, but suggestions on how we each individually can shine. But you really spend a lot of time in terms of helping others shine. Can you tell us a couple of ways that we can help others shine?
You know why? It's because so many of us, we don't, it's so hard for us to shine. It's
Hmm.
so hard for us to do it for ourselves, but it's so easy. Who finds it so easy to talk about their friends or probably even other people on the call? So
Yeah.
easy, right?
Hmm.
So that's where it's actually one of the first things to do is shine a light on other people, like you're doing for me, Gina, and then it comes back to you. It comes back to you. And I know it's Pollyanna-esque, but in some way, shape, or form, it does come back when you shine a light. When you shout out and say, even if somebody is a competitor to you, when you shine a spotlight on them and say, hey, they're doing a great job, then you look like they're peer or above them. Like, not that we're all ranking, but you look like they're equal to them. You're not worried about it. And so that allows also a feeling of abundance instead of scarcity. And then when you're also moving from a competitor stance to being in alignment with that person, then more opportunities seem to come because then they didn't want that job, but they see you as their peer, then you're going to get that. So doing things like that, shining a light on other people really does help. There's a term in construction called sistering up. Isn't that great? So it's
Love
where
that.
you have a weaker floor joist supported by something else that's stronger to make it stronger. And so that's what we can do for each other is that if somebody has an empty cup and we have a much more full cup, then we can help them out, right? So that's where we are there and helping each other along the way. And it's sistering up, but men can do it. Anyone can do it for another person. But how do we support each other as we go? It doesn't have to be only one person wins. It's how do we help more people along the way so that there are more winners and it's the rising tide type of thing for
I,
all of
I
us.
I love your analogy to the construction area, to the construction industry, not something I'm familiar with. And the fact that in construction, again, an implicit bias on my account, I would have thought that it would be brothering up or something, but sistering up. How beautiful. And I really want to just do the shout out to the people who added some additional wins, responding with thoughtful and clear boundaries to a tricky request that came up in doing some of the work that you're doing. Way to go, Rebecca. Peggy, surviving a layoff and moving into areas that you starting a senior role next month with one of the biggest insurance companies while you worked on way to go while you worked on your mental health. That is fantastic. And Miriam, I am so proud of you. Today applied for a job I thought I might like after being laid off about 3 months ago. And Alina, proud of the position I held currently, but couldn't believe first they didn't have a better that you couldn't believe didn't have a better candidate. But proud that you are the person that's in that role. So way to go. I think that is phenomenal. Thank you all so much for sharing these wins that you have and just being able to shine in the moment. I think it's really important. The next question for you, and we've talked about the research, so I'm not going to. Was it important to you to get international? Was it
Mm.
intentional to get international input into your research, or did it just happen that people from around the globe started reading it?
No, it was really intentional because of
Okay.
the American bias.
Hmm.
North American, as Canadians, we extrapolate so much from the US, but we know we are still a little different. But I wanted to make sure that it's reflective of the world of work that we live in today and not just from a small pool of American university students who are 20, 21 years old. And I'm going to say probably white. like, I'm just gonna, so I wanted to make sure it reflected more of a world of work that we have right now. So, tapped into my networks, I did tap into some university networks to see what I could get there.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because I did a second survey that I wanted to get through some universities. It didn't go as far and I didn't want to spend that much time, but it did really validate the idea that they are much more against bragging and self-promotion, is even with the definitions provided because of their age and stage. But I wanted to make sure that I got a lot of different voices. And so and it was really interesting because how many people, it was anonymous, but they gave me information. So a lot of people gave me their phone numbers or their emails and where they worked, a whole bunch of information as part of it. So I was so honored that they wanted to continue the conversation with it. So there was a qualitative and a quantitative, and a lot of people responded with qualitative and wanted the next level interviews. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating that it's still open to, but it was really important that it was international because I wanted to see what are the stories of different people. I talked to an Indigenous Canadian. I talked to also somebody who is a newer Canadian. She came from a tiny village in China. And so the model minority myth coming here. So not just in her own country, how they respond to it, but really how, as somebody new to a country, what is the model minority myth about and how does that reflect? So wide range of people who are super successful, who are also hidden gems.
Yeah.
So just really interesting people. So really wanted to make it that it was cross-cultural and not just a story of N1 me.
I appreciate that, and I know from the group, and I don't want to, I want to be respectful of people's decision not to sort of speak or whatnot. But I know from the group that, and others who are watching, that sometimes language can be a barrier. Sometimes English might not be your first language, and if you're trying to promote yourself in a language that is new to you or different from you, in a culture, in a place where you are brand new, that can be a challenge. And there's so much, as you said, there's so many gems that are just waiting to be given the opportunity to bloom. And people who perhaps, for internationally trained lawyers, for example, one group where they had such wins and such successes in other jurisdictions, and they come here and they find a number of challenges. And that really can be devastating, heartbreaking, until we start giving them that encouragement, that permission, that reminder that whether it's in another language, whether it's in a different culture, you are, not were. And it's that looking for you are and you will be that gem, that shining gem as you move forward. I think it's really important to think about that.
And that's why I think one of the best pieces of advice to start with, no matter where you are, is to start bragging to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, no matter where you are in your journey, and language barriers, cultural barriers, all the different things that people come with nowadays or always, brag to yourself first. Give yourself the kudos. Write it in a brag book. So brag book, smile file, nice news, whatever you want to call it. Someone else has already told you to do this in the past, but you probably haven't done it. Start it today, just with whatever. And if nobody's giving you the compliments you deserve, write them down, be intentional about it. And if you're getting compliments at work, but there's a lot of privacy issues, whatever you can use, paraphrase, if you're allowed to take screen grabs, whatever it is, but start collecting that data so that when you have those days of like, what am I doing here? Or why, or whatever it is, then you have that file to go back to and say, okay, this is why I'm doing it. And there is a red thread, or I have also all this evidence to go to get that next job, the next promotion, the next raise, or whatever it is, by collecting it along the way and not waiting for your leader to say, oh yeah, good job. It's like, no, I have all this information that I know I'm doing a good job, and here's what I need to move forward. It's really helpful to start one of those.
Lisa, you used a phrase for the second time, and I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I know you've got it perhaps showing visually, red thread. Can you just describe what you mean by red thread throughout?
Yeah, red thread, it's a journalism thing where you take a story and you like, so if something happens as you tell the story, you can see something in the past, you give a little bit of a nugget to the people, then you bring in the next little nugget. And then at the end, you're like, oh, aha, that's the thread. There was a thread through the whole story that was there, but so it's a journalism thing, but there's a red thread through our lives where if we look back, we can see there's a through line through all of it that like connects things, and only you can see that. You know, you can sit down with somebody in the long-term therapy and maybe they'll be able to help you out. But really is that self-reflection, that taking that time to see, okay, that happened, which led me to this. And you can see the thread of it all that will end up that it's something that you were meant to do. So red thread. I
I
could do a
love it.
whole thing on red
No,
thread.
I have to admit, I have to thank you because I always thought that bury the lead was Lead. And then and I thought it was a typo and I thought Lede. What's that? So thank you for correcting something I've had incorrect in my mind for several years, for decades and decades. I love the red thread. That's what I did 30 years ago with my then career psychologist, because we didn't have career coaches, who said to me, write out your story and see what that, she didn't call it a red thread, but see what that thread is. And I know I've done it with some people, even perhaps here on the call, where you sort of get to write out your story and see what the links are. What is sort of that common element? So I really appreciate it. I want to go to a bit of a practical question, and you were really practical in chapter 7 about this. Lawyers oftentimes say, "I just don't have time." I've, especially people who have other commitments, whether it's to children, to to parents that they're looking after, to their own other external requirements. But I often hear, "I've got no time to market or to promote yourself and to promote myself." And you say that accounting, according to data, it should be 20% of one's work time. You give us a little bit of an out and say it doesn't always have to be 20%, but how do you respond to those who are hesitating or resisting making time, finding time to do this work? Because it's part of the
Yeah,
work.
I get it. Billable hours, right?
Hmm.
So you need to be on the clock doing the things to do the things. The thing is though, you need to find that extra little bit of time. It's just it's going to the gym. It's eating the health, making your lunch. It's doing those things. Your near future your near future you will thank you. Not your future you, but the near future, because it will then allow your flywheel to get going. So a flywheel, we want it to start turning. And the more effort we put in now, the less effort we have to put in later on. So we just put a little bit of effort, just adding more and more. It's a snowball effect because we're Canadians. You get more and more, and then it's something bigger than, and you don't have to do as much work with it. So that's where we need to start having these good habits of talking about our successes, putting together something, whatever it is that you want to do, so that people will know where you are and that what you stand for and how you're here to serve. So we need to start that going. And that's where you have to find the time of just, start with 5%. It's really like, I feel like I'm telling you to eat healthy and to do your sit-ups. I really feel like it. But it's, you have to brush your teeth. And
Yeah.
so you have to do it every day, getting something out there, let it be a habit, because then, especially when times are good, you really want to make sure you're doing it. And then when times are bad, you even want to do it more,
Hmm.
because then it's going to insulate you from all of it. So many people say, well, I don't need to do that. I'm really comfortable in my job. My leader likes me. Nothing's going to happen. But I'm bummed,
Yeah.
because we live in a world nowadays where you don't know, and we're all safe. I don't want to make anyone feel off,
Yeah.
but we don't know what nowadays. Things are
Yeah.
changing so fast. And so we need to make sure that we're constantly out there talking about ourselves and letting people know where we want to go and positioning and thinking about things so that we are safe. I think it's in the book, I think it's something like we're constantly being evaluated in this world. We don't
Hmm.
know what technology is going to change, even if you're the A++++ star of the show, what's going to happen as we do mergers and acquisitions and things happen in the world. So it's really vital for your career to be out there talking. And then your next part of your career, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that. And then maybe you're going to volunteer. That's going to lead you to something else. And so that's why we need to keep letting people know all the awesomeness we're bringing to the world.
And I think what I really like hearing is making it a habit, right? Just like brushing your teeth is, just like doing those crunches or not doing the crunches, walking, whatever the case is, making this a habit. And I think you just linked in something that Peggy said, which is the Bragg book or the accomplishment log is also useful for performance review. So if you're working for somebody and you may forget, and I used to do this, I used to actually keep things in the folder because when it came to February and I had to remember back 12 months, I don't know what I did. And I wouldn't be able to pull anything out if I hadn't had things from the previous year and then the months leading up to it, sort of somewhere. Oh yeah, I forgot I did that. I forgot I got that kind of a comment. So because we're all human, we forget.
What did you wear on Friday?
Forget about Friday yesterday.
Like,
So
we don't
absolutely.
remember, because also what was really mattered last week,
Yeah.
was the end of the world. It was the biggest thing. We don't
Yeah,
remember now. And like,
absolutely.
think a year out, is this going to really matter a year out? Well, it could really matter a year out that you landed that new client, or that you won that case, or whatever it is that you did that
Hmm.
really made a difference, but nobody's going to remember it because everyone's off to the next fire, the next client, the next whatever, and then they go on mat leave, right? So it's all those things that we need to make sure that we're in control. Nobody cares about your future the way you do, right? They just can't. They're on their own future and the next thing.
And for those who are self-employed, and I know, Carrie, you mentioned that you're sort of on this new venture. I've started a couple of years ago. I had a really great, I used to do it when I was an employee, and then I sort of stopped doing it for a year until a good friend and colleague, Pommels or Paulette Naram, said to me, you know what I do every year? I sit down and do a performance, what do we call it? Success portfolio, because I just sort of do the highlights. And so this year I thought, yeah, I've got to do it. So I put little stars. I got back to grade 5, but I put little stars with the highlights for the past year. And I actually had to dig for them this past, in January. So now I'm just starting to keep them going forward. So whether you're an employee or whether you're self-employed or whether you're retired and you don't know where down the road you might be going to, keeping those things, it's good for the soul, I think, and it's also good for those opportunities that you mentioned.
You never know when you're going to use it,
Yeah,
and it's collecting a story bank. So
yeah,
collecting those little stories that are around whatever happened to win that client,
mhm,
or just even something personal, and, tapping into that. I think even like this story about being the first one to university, there's something in that you can tap into a story in some way. Like there's all these stories that we collect that make us who we are, but keeping a bank of them and knowing that they matter somewhere, that it's just you never know when that story is going to make a difference. So
no,
story
absolutely.
bank. Yeah.
Absolutely, very important. There are a couple of things that I want to ask, but I want to open it up to others as well. So we're at 8:05. I'm going to ask one more question to get people thinking. If they have questions or comments, please sort of do show your hand or raise the hand bit on the Zoom screen. But as people are starting to think about things, let me ask you this. You tell us that you want people to get comfortable being uncomfortable. When I read that, I thought, it's one of my mantras over the last little while. I hate being uncomfortable, but boy, do I have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So, how do we do this? What do you mean by this in particular, and why is it important to do it?
Yeah, well, nothing is staying the same anymore. It's moving even faster than when I wrote that book, So
Yeah.
it came out last year. Things are moving so fast. So we just have to get used to the change, and that our roles are changing, our jobs are changing, the world is changing so fast. So we have to start realizing that we have to feel that it's okay that things are changing, and that we will land where we're supposed to land with that. I think it's just making sure that you have your stories, you have all the things that you need. I do a lot of exercises in the book to help you
Yeah.
think about it, but it's a changing world, and that we are moving faster and faster. So I think there's no way of just sitting back. It's too risky for all of us on this call to just sit back and not start to feel that the world is going to be uncomfortable for a while. We have to have a lot of conversations. Things have not been good. Things
Hmm.
need to change. And so what are those conversations that so many of us in this room are leaders. So let's have those conversations. If you don't feel like a leader today, you are already a leader. So but it takes a little while for some of us to settle into that mantle. But we need to have those conversations and move forward. But getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, yeah, you just never know. It's sometimes it's being the only in the room, or being
Hmm.
awkward, or whatever it is. And sometimes we are awkward, and sometimes we have to be disliked, which is very hard for a lot of us to do.
Yeah.
1/3 of people will like you, 1/3 of people are like meh, and 1/3 of people will actually dislike you. And
I love that statistic that, and I take it it's a statistic you read or found somewhere, because when I read that I thought, yeah, there's so many of us, myself included, think, oh yeah, I want everyone to like me. It's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. And so just remembering that I think is important. And on the discomfort part of it too, um, from my world in terms of teaching, that's where you learn. When you feel uncomfortable, that's when you're getting out of your comfort zone and you're actually learning and growing and developing. And I think that discomfort is growth. And for me, that's always a beautiful part.
And that leads into right away. Everyone wants to always talk about the imposter syndrome, which I call the imposter experience. And you just articulated it. It's that we go from, well, so many of us start a new job and it's like, I know all of this, I'm good. And then you realize, I don't really know. And then we start to move towards that. I do know what I'm talking about. Okay, I get what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, what do? Once we've really mastered something, we don't stay with it. A lot of us, we jump to something else. So that's where we're getting, we're just not going to stay in the comfort zone. We go and it's an S curve and we jump to a new opportunity and we start again and feeling that uncomfortable. Well, we feel comfortable, then we feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and then we start to feel comfortable and then we get bored and we leave and we do stuff. So
Exactly. I've somebody on this call, for example, has decided to sail around the Mediterranean and other parts, and she went from 1 day sails to a few days or weeks out in the water, and there's a lot of discomfort there. And so again, getting past that and just learning from it and moving forward, I think is really great. I want to ask you one more question. First of all, thank you, Peggy, and if you could also email me. She shared a template of an accomplishment log, useful for those who are currently employees. Feel free to download. I really appreciate that. And if you can also email it to me, I'll also include it in the summary that I sent to everybody who wasn't able to join today. And Rebecca, you're right. The particular discomfort doesn't last forever. You get past that once you've grown, as Lisa said, then you might get a little bored and move on. And then new discomfort will settle in, but you've mastered discomfort before. Feel good that you've mastered discomfort and you're good at dealing with it. Let me just pause because I've got a couple of questions, but I'll wait to see. Is there anybody else who has a question or a comment here for Lisa or for the group before we move on? Feel free to put your hand up or unmute.
Hi.
There's Gary. Hey,
Thank
Gary.
you, Gina, Lisa. This is great. This is exactly what I needed today. So I'm just curious, so your advice around starting by bragging to yourself, I love that. I love the baby steps. You have any guidance on, maybe it's in the book. I got to get your book. I just signed up today. But how do you structure your story? Because what I find is as soon as I get to a point where I'm going to say something, about maybe something that I did that maybe I do feel a little shiny about or shimmery about, I just end up swallowing my own tongue and I sound ridiculous and I want to crawl under a rock, right? So maybe something around, and also how to say it, something's short enough that it's pithy enough, I guess. Because I also think just like now, I go on and I'm like, oh my God, stop. Okay, so now I'm going to stop and I'll let you.
you're so good. I love that. You know what it is? We often censor ourselves. Women often don't want to take up too much space. We want to make sure that we pass the mic. And so we do that to ourselves. So I think part of it is allowing yourself to have some of the stories, but have a point. So you had a point in that. So have the point. Here's what I want to say, but allow your stories to have color. Like we need to add in what it felt like, what I want people to do. So how do you make people think, feel, and do? That's a simple way of telling a story. Help them to think, help them to feel, help them to do. Have a beginning, middle, and end is often really helpful too. But we often censor ourselves and we don't allow that color to add to our story, to add to our own unique perspective of the world. And that's where we really move everything into this strange wash instead of allowing our own, whatever it is that we bring to add to the story. And I think that we need that a little bit infused more. So instead of making it so corporate, it's like we are humans having a human experience. So how do we make sure that we bring our human aspect to it? I think, but have a point. So the book talks about having a point of view and then having your pillars. So then you really know what you want to talk about and what your lanes are, that, you know, you can talk about everything, but when people want to know you for a certain topic, like people know me for bragging, success, a lot about for women leadership. And so they know my lanes. And so they know how to tap into me. So when we have our lanes, it really does help for people to know you. But storytelling is one of those things that we have to start thinking about our stories today, so that when we have an opportunity, then we can pull out that great story. Comedians tell the same story over and over again. You know, Lady Gaga, I think I have it in the book. It's in the book. There's a great YouTube video of, she's on tour and a super fan made a compilation, and it's her for, A Star Is Born. And she says, you know, you can be in a room and 99 people don't care, but it's that one person. And she says it for like, I think it's 7 minutes, the same thing over and over again. And we get in our heads that we have to have a brand new story, a brand new outfit, a brand new everything every time. No, you can say the same story again and again and again and again and again and perfect it, and then take it out on the road. So try a story on and let it breathe and let it live. Practice a story to yourself. Get on a Zoom where you're by yourself and talking to the camera, or record yourself and riff off your own story ideas. Hopefully that's helpful. And go get my book, please.
Thanks, Carrie. Thank you for good to see you.
Thanks for going first too. Go first. Always try to go first. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask Rebecca, join us, your question or comment for Lisa and for the group.
Thank you. Yeah, Lisa, you mentioned when you're thinking about door number 1 or door number 3, you know, making a decision, that you take time to reflect. But I'm wondering in particular, like if you could share how you discern between door number 1 and door number 3. Like what's your process? What do you bring in?
Yeah, I do the simple pro con list a lot. So what's something I'm going to get out of it? What's something I'm not? And I let it sit if it's something big. So what am I going to get out of this? What's the win? And then also the con, like what's going to go wrong with this? What failures do I need to be aware of? So I do a lot of that kind of pro con list. I think it's making sure that I'm aware of both sides, because, you know, we also get so up in the moment of what something is going to be good or not. And if we take a step back to do that. So that's a pretty simple answer for that. I probably have a few other good ones that I can't think of off the top of my head, but is that helpful? Or what do you usually do? You just jump in?
Yeah, no, that's great. Like I thought it would be interesting to hear your process, because it sounds very, you know, thoughtful, and you have your records and your books and your, you know, so how do you, when it is that a bit of a gut thing too, like there's the thoughtful part, but also just the like what feels like the right direction. So just curious how you pull that all together.
Rebecca, I'm so glad you brought that up though, because we spend so much time here being so analytical. And I think the world, and I know you're lawyers, but we have to move from here. And I think this is what a lot of women bring. I'm being, you know, but we need to move from here. This world needs us to move from here much more into our heart, and then into our gut or intuition. We're talking about it more and more, about these smart skills, about all the things that we can all bring that's just beyond, you know, we are humans having a human experience, and we need to articulate that all the way through and help people. We're people. So I think that's a big factor to it. So, but thanks for that reflection too with the pro con list.
Thank you.
Rebecca, thanks for that question, because I think one of the other ways that I know some people do it is to actually try and see themselves in each of the doors, or behind each of the doors, whatever the analogy is that we're going to use right now. Put yourself into that, you know, sit down mindfully, you know, in a quiet place, and just kind of see yourself doing 1, see yourself doing 2, see yourself doing 3. So you've got the pros and cons list going as well, but then how does it feel to actually be in? And from coaching, we say, take a different perspective. So actually take the 3 perspectives, if there's 3 choices, and get a sense of what feels right for you, right? So a combination of using all of that is another way of doing it. I wonder if others have any ways that they go through decision making of various options. You know, the pro con list, the visualization, sometimes just jumping in, or talking to somebody about it and hearing them think about it. I'm curious if anybody else has any ways of making decision that they want to suggest as well.
Can I just add to yours while people
Yeah.
think, Gina, and when you're doing that visualization, don't see yourself doing it, see the people watching you. So especially if you're on any stages, it's not that you're looking at yourself on stage, you're looking at the audience. So look, see through your own eyes of what it looks like and not you, because then it really brings you to that visualization. So try it from that perspective too, just to add on to Gina's, that you are there walking through the halls of wherever it is, if it's a bigger firm or a bigger client, you see yourself and you see them roll out the red carpet for you and the trumpets and the trombones play and see yourself there, that you are looking through your eyes in that environment.
Carrie, you say take the longer view, try to imagine how this decision will feel. And I like how you say not how how you'll see it, but how it'll feel in 5 years and in 10 years. And that's a really great opportunity as well. Rebecca, thanks for the question. Any other comments or questions? I don't know if Alina is trying to come online or if that's just I see Alina's face, but I'm not sure if just in case, I'll ask another question, because in your book, and for those who may not have it yet, Alina, until you're able to come in, let me know. One of the things that I really loved at the end of each chapter, you had sections for the reader to consider, things to consider, to do, and then to share.
Yeah.
I love that. And it was in each section, and it was something for you to think about, something for you to actually do. And I've got notes all over it here, and then something to share. Why did you choose those three? And how did you come up with that?
Yeah. You know what? I was just, how can I be of service? How can I truly be of service? And so I thought about it. We don't do enough self-reflection time. We need to do something so that the reader has wins. So you have a win right away. And one of the wins is emailing me with a win. Like it's simple wins, but to do something, because we need to do something to move the dial. And then we need to think about ourselves. We need to reflect, because we don't reflect enough on really what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? What have I already done that's already made me successful? And I haven't really taken the time to think about it. And then we also need to go on this journey together. So how do I share this knowledge with you? Or how does Rebecca share it with Tiffany? Or how do you share something that could then help that next person? I think that's a really critical piece, because we're not on this journey alone. We are all together. So how can we help each other? And I think that's really critical. And then my editor loved it. So
way to go. That's always a good thing.
Yeah. So I was like, I think I should do this because I really want people to do something. I do think maybe I added in a few too many things. And that's my, my perfectionist tendencies. I don't want to just give you this. I'm not just going to give you a snack. I'm not going to just give you a meal. I'm going to give you the kitchen sink, right? Or the supermarket. So that's a little bit of my thing. So I had to hone myself back with, over delivering. And anyone else guilty of the over delivering kind of thing?
Oh,
A little bit.
yeah,
I see a
yeah.
few smiles. Yeah.
But that's also why this book is so great, because it's a go back to. Like, you'll read it the first time. You can't, I don't think you can read your book once and just leave it. It's this sort of, oh yeah, I'm going to go back to it. I've already sent myself notes. Look at page so-and-so for an upcoming workshop that I'm doing, or look at page so-and-so for me to think about and reflect on. So it's one of those books that you keep going back to as a guide, which I love. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you.
Let me ask you, as we're coming close to the end, and if anybody has any questions or comments, by all means, put up your hand, please, so we can know. Victoria, let's go to you first before I ask my next question.
I was just gonna say, it's just a comment that I haven't read the book, and I didn't know what to expect, just from the bragging rights. But through this conversation, I'm really excited to read it, because I feel that it speaks to me exactly of how we can come together and change the world by changing ourselves. So it's kind of a call for action, something that is very much needed, I think, especially when it comes to doing something and uniting women to try to shine on ourselves and on the others. So thank you so much, basically, for this, Gina and Lisa, for writing the book. I'm looking forward to getting it now.
Thank
I'm so
you.
glad. And I saw Carrie's note that she just ordered the book. Way to go, Carrie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Instantaneous. Way to go.
Yeah. And if
Sorry,
you can,
Lisa,
get one for a friend so you're not doing it alone. So,
I love it.
or share it with her afterwards. And I think, Miriam, did you have your hand out?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to say that I've read this something that professional women usually underestimate their achievements, their abilities, and I do that a lot, and overestimate the other people's abilities and achievement. I always have this problem to even mention to myself that I have some kind of accomplishment or something worth writing or telling somebody. I'm like, yeah, of course, law degree, yeah, that bar association of blah blah, yeah, of course. These kind of things are not considered for me accomplishment or something to brag about. Just wanted to have your thoughts on it.
You know, can I give you a secret? And I'm going to tell you a secret. So many people nominate themselves for awards. So we just don't think anything special about us. But meanwhile, the next person over is winning the awards because they're not just nominating themselves. And so that's where we have to take the time to reflect and say, okay, I have this thing, but what is it about that I bring to the world with it? So what is the differentiating factor? What is that only I have? And so it's taking that self-reflection time and thinking about it. What are those things that will make the world a better place? And it sounds so lofty, so it doesn't have to be the world, but it could just be, my neighborhood. It could be my, where I work. It can be one of those things. So starting to just think about it in a concrete way and taking the time, I bet you'll find things for sure, Miriam. But so many people nominate themselves with so much less than what we have and what you have, I'm sure. We just think that everyone else has all these things. Meanwhile, they're just talking about some of the things, and they could be the smallest thing, but they're talking about them. So that's where we feel like, well, I haven't done anything. You just haven't thought about all the awesomeness that you've done and you've thought about. Does that help at all? Is that along the lines, Miriam?
Yeah.
And Mary,
Yeah,
I'm going to
sure.
say you're teaching young girls who don't have access to education online, girls in Afghanistan. You are teaching them online from Canada. That is an awesome thing to do. One of many. Sorry, Lisa.
Because what I think you need to do is the exercise in the book. That's the remarkable one. So it's where you write down all the things that make you remarkable. And you're like, there's nothing that makes me remarkable. Try to do it beyond, I'm a good daughter, I'm a good auntie, I'm a good wife, mother, or dog parent, whatever your roles are in this world. Make it about, those are all good things, but make it more about you and the career and who you are, and not all of the roles that we play for our family, because those are easy ones to do. I'm a good daughter, I'm a good, but really do that exercise. And when I do this in a workshop, often people end up crying. So just be aware that there might be some raw emotions, because you're going to sit there and write a list of all the things that make you remarkable. And it's hard to do. Put a timer and make sure that you finish, if you're going to do it on the keyboard, or write it out, but make sure that you're spending that time and force yourself to fill a page of all the ways that make you remarkable. And then you get into this raw place of really that there is a lot, and there might be some resistance right now, but when you get into it, and I have to sit here anyways for 5 minutes. Lisa told me I had to. I might as well
Tell
write
Lisa.
something.
Yeah, Lisa told you to sit there for 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
You have to
I
do
appreciate
it. It's your job. Send it to me. Send it to me. But you might be upset. It's hard. It's a hard exercise. Just think about all the things that make you remarkable, besides the everyday things that we just go to. Like, what are those things? So take that time and do that exercise.
I think that's a really
Sure, I will. Thank you so much. Great advice.
Oh,
Thank you,
good.
Miriam. There's one more question from Alina, and I want to, because I think this is one that we haven't talked about. How do you handle a situation where you need to admit a mistake? Do you turn it into an opportunity to showcase your strengths? What would you say about that?
Ooh, that's a great one.
Yeah,
That is a
yeah.
really good one. Yeah, you know what? I think often if we just say we fess up, here's the mistake I made, but here's all the ways that I'm going to correct it. I'm fixing it. I'm doing all these other things to make it shine. I think it's just really get to the point, but then showcase how you are making it better and then and work to that. Gina, do you have any advice on that one?
Yeah, I think that, as you said, own it, first of all, own up to it that, yep, you made a mistake. And this is what what I've learned from it, what I'm going to do about it, how I'm going to rectify it. And then if you need to come back and just say, this is what happened. These are the things that came out of that mistake. This is these are the successes that did come out of that mistake. So owning it and then just dealing with it and working with it, I think is really important to do.
And now we don't want to do it in the moment, but often, and you don't want to do this on purpose, but when you have a wound, you've made a mistake, it's a wound, and then it turns into a scar, you've learned things from it on your journey, then you can look back and it's a teachable moment for other people. And you can say, this is where I was, and this is what I've learned from it. So, fess up, deal with it. And then, you're going to have a great story once you've gone through the journey of whatever it is that you've learned from that. So,
It
Alina, I hope
becomes one
that's
of your
helpful.
stories in your story bank, right? In your story
Story
bank.
for
I
your
love that.
story bank. Yes, it
Um,
is.
Lisa,
And you
last
brag
question
about
for
what you learned from the mistake.
there we go.
Then you brag about what you learn about from the mistake.
But that's people find that interesting because it's
Yeah.
like that's and as women we want to watch, what am I telling people? Like we do have to watch perceptions of things, but when we put it out there, other people then see us as humans and that we are also go-to resource for different things. And, I think we just can't always put on armor. We have to let some people in to see who we really are.
We're human beings. I love that. And last question over to you, Lisa, a little bit of role modeling. You use the word superpower in your book, and you talk about what makes you remarkable. To think about it, what makes you remarkable? Tell us what makes you remarkable.
It's like one of the hardest things to do. You know what? It's I can really see I really want people to be seen and heard. So I think that makes me remarkable. I truly want it. I truly believe it. I'm a connector of people. I love connecting people to the next opportunity, the next thing. I think those are a few things. I love presenting and doing workshops. I love sharing knowledge that whatever I have, I want to give to the next person and I'm always hopeful that it will help them on their journey to make their journey easier and that we can actually help each other along the way. So I have that abundance mindset as much as possible to move forward. So yeah, it's an exercise we have to come back to. I am my book. I am one of those people that I need to constantly go back to my book too and keep going and making sure that I'm sharing all the wisdom that I've garnered from, we're all here based on the shoulders of giants, and how have I put it together and connected it to the bigger picture? That's a big thing for me. So
I
thank
thank you
you.
for role modeling that, because I know how uncomfortable it can be, even for somebody who writes about it and talks about it. So thank you for that. I've put Lisa's and my information up on the screen. Hopefully people can see it, your email, because you did say they can email you their wins. And so
Oh, please. Yeah, I
hello at
say so in the book.
lisabragg.com.
Yeah, I say
Absolutely.
in the
So you've
book,
got it there.
contact me. Yeah, I will be there to cheer you on. Hashtag bragging rights, and I'll cheer you on too. And yeah, just appreciate your time. Thank you, Gina, for the opportunity.
My pleasure. And I wanted to remind anybody who is looking at CPD hours, 1.5 hour of professionalism. And a huge thank you, Lisa, and to all of you for sharing your wins. But Lisa had a part in the book that it was early on, but it just kept coming back to me. And I just wanted to share this for you right back at you now, Lisa. You are the source of so many great things. The world needs you. We need your spark for the full on fireworks you can bring, or that little combustion you can deliver to that one person in your community or across the globe to help them soar. Those words so very much apply to you. And I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time. And if this has been of any interest and I can be of assistance, the book is there on Amazon. I'll just put it in the chat for you, but I appreciate it. And make sure you share some of this knowledge with someone else who needs it today. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, the next book club is going to be March 26th. We're with Fotini. I can say it in Greek, but not in English. Fotini Economopoulos. And she'll be joining us on her book, Say Less, Get More, all about negotiating. And it's something that women, we really do want to know about. So to
And she's my
everyone.
friend. She's awesome. Yeah, I
Tell her
just
she's
saw her
going to have
last
fun
week.
today. There we go.
Yeah.
She's going to have fun in March. So I'm really grateful to you, Lisa, and to everybody for sharing. And I just want all of you to go out there and shine and shimmer and be brave. I really appreciate it. Have a really good evening, everyone, and take care to all of you. And have a safe trip, Lisa, when you go as well. Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Stay
Bye
well.
now.
Appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks.
you.